Hi, today I'm going to show you how I make a replacement snare for my Brion Toss Wand. I just put a brand new one in yesterday. I put this one in about a year ago and it's been through some heavy splicing, but it's starting to show some wear, so I made the new one and I thought you might like to see how I made it. So some of the supplies and tools that you'll need to make this are, of course, the material that you're going to make it out of. I recommend Technora or Vectran fibers. Dyneema works very well. Polyester and nylons don't last quite as long, but they'll get the job done if you don't have the others available. I always use scraps for mine. There's no need to mess up a good rope for something like this. I made this sling the other day. It's Samson Ice Tail, and it's just a split tail to tie a Blake's hitch or something like that. It has a full berry, so I had some long strands that got pulled out of it. This is all Technora. There's a polyester core on the inside, the white stuff. Just throw that off to the side. And what you'll need to do is pull off 3 tiny pieces of this, just slightly thicker than what you'd normally see the thickness of sewing thread for a regular home sewing machine. Okay, so once you get your 3 strands, you want to put the ends of them together. Just tie them in an overhand knot. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And you'll need something secure to anchor them to. If you don't have a nice vise like this to use, I'm sure you can come up with something. And I've even seen people do this tying it to their shoelace while sitting Indian style. Or I guess that would be Native American style. So go ahead and clamp that down nice and tight so that it can't slip out. And there's my 3 strands. Okay, once you get your 3 strands anchored into the vise or wherever you're anchoring them, the next part is easy if you have a daughter. You just need to braid it in the same way that you would braid their hair, with the left going over the middle and then the right going over the middle, left over the middle, right over the middle, and you get to play rope maker here. The further back you keep your fingers, hold on one second, the further back you keep your fingers will give you a looser weave and not as chafe resistant of a snare. So if you keep your fingers really close up, it changes the angle of things. You can see that I'm keeping these strands out wide as they come in. It makes a much tighter weave with tighter angles, and it's much more chafe resistant. Goes by a little slower. So what I do is, for the beginning part of it, this part I do loose, and then when I get to the middle section where most of the chafe will be, I make a really tight angle for about 1.5 inches or so, and then I soften up that angle once we get to the point. Get past the point where most of the chafe will be. And I started with some really long tails here, so I'm getting some tangles down at the bottom. So I just need to take a moment to loosen those before I go too far. Woo-wee. And it helps if you stop and untangle these before they get out of control. Otherwise you end up with what I got going on here. So I can pull that one out. That one out. Okay, so we can go back to business. So you're going to make this, you want a loop that's about 3 to 3.5 inches long, so that means you need to make this strand almost 7 inches. You can go a little shorter than that and it'll be fine. Let me adjust the camera here real quick. Okay, so I'm putting my hands further back to speed up the job, and soften. Okay, that'll give us just about 6 inches there. So at this point, just hold this firm right here, and you're going to tie another overhand knot right at the end. Oops, excuse me. Right about here. That's just to keep the braid from coming undone during the next step. Alright, so once you have the snare braided, we have to turn it into a loop. So go ahead and line up the ends. I started here at this overhand knot, and you can see the second overhand knot here, but the braiding actually stops right about here. I know it's hard to see, but you can just barely see it. So line up the overhand knots with where the end of the snare will be, and you're going to tie one last overhand knot on a bite and tighten that down. And then for this part, it really does help to grab a pair, grab a pair of pliers, and you can kind of squeeze down on this overhand knot because you want it to be kind of small, and tighten this knot as tight as you can get it. You'll feel that the Technora fibers don't stretch at all. Okay, so once you have that tightened, we're going to go ahead and cut all this excess off. So right about here. Okay, so there is our snare. The next step that I normally do is in this film canister I have some watered down maxi jacket coating. It's just a water-based coating anyway. So I dip it in there, let it air dry for about 10 minutes, and then it's ready to be installed. So I'm going to go ahead and dip this one off camera, and then we'll install it in a little bit. Alright, so to install our snare into the wand, you can loosen up your wand and pull the outer sheath off the wand. And now we need to get the snare inside there. If you've made it thin enough, sometimes you can just fold this up and through to make the job a little easier. I'm going to thread this piece of string. Whoop. And then we'll take the two ends and we'll push the two ends through the brass part of the wand, and then use that to pull the snare right through. And you want the overhand knot should be big enough that that it won't slip through the brass collar right here. If you've made your knot, your snare very thin, the knot might slip all the way through. So go ahead and turn this into a, add another overhand knot, or maybe make a figure 8 on a bite, something of that sort. This one's working out just fine. So once the snare is installed, we can take the silver part of the wand and slide it back on. And voila! Our snare is now ready to work.
This hobby went right to his head. He fell in love with her eye instead of the girl. He was just a lonely guy, fell from her only eye. Just watching from the sky, said he was walking by.
If you have a daughter, this part will be easier for you. You just have to braid them together just like you would braid her hair. And you'll have to excuse me, I got a phone call.